Welcome to Godlike Academy. For real, free practice exam questions, head to godlikeexams.com. And if these cloud certification lessons help you prep, hit subscribe and like. It really helps the channel. Question 1. Your company has a Microsoft 365 ES subscription. The Chief Compliance Officer plans to enhance privacy management in the working environment. You need to recommend a solution to enhance the privacy management. The solution must meet the following requirements: identify unused personal data and empower users to make smart data handling decisions. Provide users with notifications and guidance when a user sends personal data in Microsoft Teams. Provide users with recommendations to mitigate privacy risks. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, communication compliance in insider risk management. Option B, Microsoft Viva Insights. Option C, privacy risk management in Microsoft Priva. Option D, advanced e-discovery. The correct answer is C, privacy risk management in Microsoft Priva. Privacy risk management in Microsoft Priva allows for the identification of unused personal data and provides users with notifications and guidance on handling personal data securely, including mitigating privacy risks when sending data via Microsoft Teams. Question 2. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. Suspicious authentication activity alerts have been appearing in the Workload Protections dashboard. You need to recommend a solution to evaluate and remediate the alerts by using workflow automation. The solution must minimize development effort. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, Azure Monitor webhooks. Option B, Azure Event Hubs. Option C, Azure Functions apps. Option D, Azure Logics apps. The correct answer is D, Azure Logics apps. Azure Logic Apps is the appropriate choice for automating workflows in response to suspicious activity alerts from Microsoft Defender for Cloud, as it supports integration with security, services, and enables automated remediation steps without requiring extensive development effort. Question 3. Your company is moving a big data solution to Azure. The company plans to use the following storage workloads: Azure Storage Blob Containers, Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, Azure Storage File shares, Azure Disk Storage, which two storage workloads support authentication by using Azure Active Directory, Azure ID. Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, Azure Storage File shares. Option B, Azure Disk Storage. Option C, Azure Storage Blob Containers. Option D, Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. The correct answers are A and D, Azure Storage File shares, and Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 support authentication using Azure Active Directory, Azure ID. In contrast, Azure Disk Storage and Azure Storage Blob Containers do not natively offer this form of authentication. Question 4. Your company is migrating data to Azure. The data contains personally identifiable information, PII. The company plans to use Microsoft Information Protection for the PII data store in Azure. You need to recommend a solution to discover PII data at risk in the Azure resources. What should you include in the recommendation? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the two statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. To connect the Azure data sources to Microsoft Information Protection. Options: Azure Purview, Endpoint Data Loss Prevention, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Microsoft Information Protection. Statement 2. to triage security alerts related to resources that contain PII data. Options: Azure Monitor, Endpoint Data Loss Prevention, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Azure Purview. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Statement 1, yes, Azure Purview provides capabilities to discover sensitive information like personally identifiable information, PII, across various data sources in Azure and on-premises. Statement 2, no. While Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is useful for visualizing cloud application usage and protecting data, the correct tool here is Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which integrates with Purview and provides security insights specific to PII protection. Question 5. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription and an Azure subscription. You are designing a Microsoft deployment. You need to recommend a solution for the security operations team. The solution must include custom views and a dashboard for analyzing security events. What should you recommend using in Microsoft Sentinel? Option A: Notebooks. Option B: Playbooks. Option C: Workbooks. Option D: Threat Intelligence. The correct answer is C: Workbooks. Workbooks in Microsoft Sentinel provide a flexible canvas for creating custom views and dashboards to analyze security events. This makes them the appropriate choice for the security operations team's needs. Question 6. Your company has a Microsoft 365 subscription and uses Microsoft Defender for identity. You are informed about incidents that relate to compromised identities. You need to recommend a solution to expose several accounts for attackers to exploit. When the attackers attempt to exploit the accounts, an alert must be triggered. Which Defender for Identity feature should you include in the recommendation? Option A: Sensitivity labels. Option B: Custom user tags. Option C: Standalone sensors. Option D: Honeytoken entity tags. The correct answer is D: Honeytoken entity tags. Honeytoken entity tags are designed to act as traps for malicious actors. When an attacker attempts to exploit a Honeytoken tagged account, Defender for Identity triggers an alert. Question 7. Your company is moving all on-premises workloads to Azure and Microsoft 365. You need to design a security orchestration, automation, and response source strategy in Microsoft Sentinel that meets the following requirements: minimizes manual intervention by security operation analysts, supports triaging alerts within Microsoft Teams channels. What should you include in the strategy? Option A: KQL. Option B: Playbooks. Option C: Data connectors. Option D: Workbooks. The correct answer is B: Playbooks. Playbooks in Microsoft Sentinel automate responses to security alerts, reducing manual intervention by security operation analysts and supporting the triaging of alerts within Microsoft Teams channels. Question 8. You have an Azure subscription that contains virtual machines, storage accounts, and Azure SQL databases. All resources are backed up multiple times a day by using Azure Backup. You are developing a strategy to protect against ransomware attacks. You need to recommend which controls must be enabled to ensure that Azure Backup can be used to restore the resources in the event of a successful ransomware attack. Which 2 controls should you include in the recommendation? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A: enable soft delete for backups. Option B: require pins for critical operations. Option C, encrypt backups by using customer-managed keys, CMKs. Option D, perform offline backups to Azure Data Box. Option E, use Azure Monitor notifications when backup configurations change. The correct answers are A and C. Enabling soft delete for backups ensures that deleted backups can be recovered, protecting against ransomware attacks. Encrypting backups with customer-managed keys adds an additional layer of security by controlling encryption key management. Question 9. You are creating the security recommendations for an Azure App Service web app named App 1. App 1 has the following specifications. Users will request access to App 1 through the My Apps portal. A human resources manager will approve the requests. Users will authenticate by using Azure Active Directory, Azure ID, user accounts. You need to recommend an access security architecture for App 1. What should you include in the recommendation? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. To enable Azure ID authentication for App 1, use options: Azure ID Application, Azure ID Application Proxy, Azure Application Gateway, a managed identity in Azure ID, Microsoft Defender for App. Statement 2. To implement access requests for App 1, use options: an access package in Identity Governance, an access policy in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, an access review in Identity Governance, Azure ID Conditional Access App Control, an OAuth app policy in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Azure ID Application. For Statement 2, the correct answer is an access package in Identity Governance. Statement 1, yes, Azure ID application registration is necessary because it allows the web app to integrate with Azure Active Directory for authentication. This ensures that only users who are authenticated through Azure ID can access App 1. Statement 2, yes, an Axia's access package in Identity Governance should be included as it supports automated approval workflows and governance of resource access, which aligns with the requirement that a human resources manager will approve user requests to access App 1. Question 10. Your company uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Microsoft Sentinel. The company is designing an application that will have the architecture shown in the following exhibit. You are designing a logging and auditing solution for the proposed architecture. The solution must meet the following requirements. Integrate Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF, logs with Microsoft Sentinel. Use Defender for Cloud to review alerts from the virtual machines. What should you include in the solution? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, for WAF, options: the Azure Diagnostics Extension, Azure Network Watcher, Data Connectors, Workflow Automation. Statement 2, for the virtual machines, options: the Azure Diagnostics Extension, Azure Storage Analytics, Data Connectors, the Log Analytics Agent, Workflow Automation. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Data Connectors. For Statement 2, the correct answer is the Log Analytics Agent. Statement 1, yes, the answer is correct as it suggests the use of appropriate tools for logging and auditing. Statement 2, yes, F for WAF integration with Sentinel, a data connector must be used. For VMs, the Log Analytics Agent is necessary to send logs to Azure Monitor and integrate them into Sentinel. Statement 3, yes, the term Log Analytics Ag Agent can also be referred to as the Azure Monitoring Agent, which is correct according to Microsoft documentation. Statement 4. Yes, it correctly identifies that a data connector should be used for WAF, while the log analytics agent must be installed on VMs to enable log collection. Question 11. Your company has a third-party security information and event management (SIEM) solution that uses Splunk and Microsoft Sentinel. You plan to integrate Microsoft Sentinel with Splunk. You need to recommend a solution to send security events from Microsoft Sentinel to Splunk. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, a Microsoft Sentinel data connector. Option B, Azure Event Hubs. Option C, a Microsoft Sentinel workbook. Option D, Azure Data Factory. The correct answer is A, a Microsoft Sentinel data connector. A Microsoft Sentinel data connector is designed to export security events from Microsoft Sentinel to external systems like SBL Splunk. This functionality directly supports the requirement of sending security events from Microsoft Sentinel to a third-party SIEM solution, such as Splunk. Question 12. A customer follows the Zero Trust model and explicitly verifies each attempt to access its corporate applications. The customer discovers that several endpoints are infected with malware. The customer suspends access attempts from the infected endpoints. The malware is removed from the endpoints, which two conditions must be met before endpoint users can access the corporate applications again. Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, the client access tokens are refreshed. Option B, Microsoft Intune reports the endpoints as compliant. Option C, a new Azure Active Directory, Azure ID conditional access policy is enforced. Option D, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint reports the endpoints as compliant. The correct answers are B and D in a Zero Trust model. Endpoint compliance is crucial. Microsoft Intune ensures that endpoints meet organizational security, requirements, and reports their status as compliant or non-compliant. Additionally, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint must report the endpoints as clean from threats to ensure they are safe for access. Question 13. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription and an Azure subscription. Microsoft 365 Defender and Microsoft Defender for Cloud are enabled. The Azure subscription contains a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. Microsoft Sentinel data connectors are configured for Microsoft 365, Microsoft 365 Defender, Defender for Cloud, and Azure. You plan to deploy Azure virtual machines that will run Windows Server. You need to enable extended detection and response, EDR, and security orchestration, automation, and response, SOAR capabilities for Microsoft Sentinel. How should you recommend enabling each capability? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 8 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Add a Microsoft Sentinel data connector for Azure Active Directory, Azure ID. Options, yes, no. Statement 2. Add a Microsoft Sentinel data connector for Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Options, yes, no. Statement 3. Onboard the servers to Azure Arc. Options, yes, no. Statement 4. Onboard the servers to Defender for Cloud. Options, yes, no. Statement 5. Configure Microsoft Sentinel Analytics rules. Options, yes, no. Statement 6. Configure Microsoft Sentinel playbooks. Options, yes, no. Statement 7. Configure regulatory compliance standards in Defender for Cloud. Options, yes, no. Statement 8. Configure workflow automation in Defender for Cloud. Options, yes, no. For Statement 1, the correct answer is no. For Statement 2, the correct answer is no. For statement 3, the correct answer is yes. For statement 4, the correct answer is no. For statement 5, the correct answer is no. For statement 6, the correct answer is yes. For statement 7, the correct answer is no. For statement 8, the correct answer is no. Statement 1, yes. To enable the EDR capability, you should use Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. This aligns with the official D documentation that states Microsoft Defender for Endpoint provides endpoint detection and response capabilities to protect against cyber threats. Statement 2. Yes. To enable the SOAR capability, configuring playbook automation within Microsoft Sentinel is correct. According to the official documentation on automating responses in Microsoft Sentinel, playbooks are used to automate incident responses, which is part of the security orchestration, automation, and response capabilities. Question 14. You have a customer that has a Microsoft 365 subscription and uses the free edition of Azure Active Directory, Azure ID. The customer plans to obtain an Azure subscription and provisions several Azure resources. You need to evaluate the customer's security environment. What will necessitate an upgrade from the Azure ID Free Edition to the Premium Edition? Option A, Azure ID Privileged Identity Management (PIM). Option B, Role-Based Authorization. Option C, Resource-Based Authorization. Option D, Azure ID Multi-Factor Authentication. The correct answer is A, Azure ID Privileged Identity Management (PIM). Azure ID Privileged Identity Management (PIM) requires as Azure ID Premium. Role-based and resource-based authorizations can be performed with the free edition of Azure ID. And while Azure ID multi-factor authentication is available in the free tier when using security defaults, PIM specifically mandates a premium license. Question 15. You are designing the security standards for a new Azure environment. You need to design a privileged identity strategy based on the Zero Trust model. Which framework should you follow to create the design? Option A, Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle, SDL. Option B, Enhanced Security Admin Environment, ESAE. Option C, Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP. Option D, Microsoft Operational Security Assurance, OSA. The correct answer is C, Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP. The Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP, is designed to help Q quickly adopt Microsoft's recommended privileged access strategy aligned with the Zero Trust model. Other options like SDL and OSA are related to software development lifecycle, while ESAE has been replaced by RAMP. Question 16. A customer has a hybrid cloud infrastructure that contains a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription and an Azure subscription. All on-premises servers in the perimeter network are prevented from connecting directly to the internet. The customer recently recovered from a ransomware attack. The customer plans to deploy Microsoft Sentinel. You need to recommend solutions to meet the following requirements. Ensure that the security operations team can access the security logs and the operation logs. Ensure that the IT operations team can access only the operations logs, including the event logs of the servers in the perimeter network. Which two solutions should you include in the recommendation? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, a custom collector that uses the Log Analytics agent. Option B, the Azure Monitor agent. Option C, resource-based role-based access control are back. Option D, Azure Active Directory, Azure ID, conditional access policies. The correct answers are B, and C, the Azure Monitor agent with the multi-H multi-homing configuration ensures that logs from on-premises servers are collected and sent to Microsoft Sentinel. Resource-based role-based access control, RBAC, allows for granular permissions, ensuring that the security operations team can access both security and operation logs, while the IT operations team can only access operation logs. Question 17. Your company is developing a serverless application in Azure that will have the architecture shown in the following exhibit. You need to recommend a solution to isolate the compute components on an Azure virtual network. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, Azure Active Directory, Azure ID, Enterprise Applications. Option B, an Azure App Service Environment, ISE. Option C, Azure Service Endpoints. Option D, an Azure Active Directory, Azure ID Application Proxy Diagram. External services connect to IPI management, which routes to Key Vault, Patient IPI, and Audit IPI. Patient IPI and Audit IPI interact with Key Vault and Azure Cosmos DB. The correct answer is B, an Azure App Service Environment, ISE. An Azure App Service Environment, ISE, allows for hosting web apps, mobile apps, and functions within an isolated subnet of a virtual network in Azure. Providing secure network access and isolation are required by the architecture. Question 18. You are planning the security levels for a security access strategy. You need to identify which job roles to configure at which security levels. The solution must meet security best practices of the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architectures, MCRA. Which security level should you configure for each job role? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 3 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Developer. Options, Enterprise Security, Privileged Security, Specialized Security. Statement 2. Standard User. Options, Enterprise Security, Privileged Security, Specialized Security. Statement 3, IT Administrator. Options, Enterprise Security, Privileged Security, Specialized Security. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Specialized Security. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Enterprise Security. For Statement 3, the correct answer is Privileged Security. Statement 1, Specialized Security. According to Microsoft's documentation, specialized security levels are intended for raw roles with an elevated business impact. This aligns with the context of developers or similar roles needing increased controls due to their potential exposure. Statement 2, Enterprise Security. Enterprise security is designed for standard corporate roles that require a balanced level of access control and operational efficiency. This matches the typical needs F for general enterprise users. Statement 3, Privileged Security. Privileged security is designated for high-impact roles such as administrators or operators who need elevated permissions, aligning with Microsoft's guidelines on privileged access workstations. Question 19. Your company plans to apply the Zero Trust Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP, to its IT environment. You need to recommend the top 3 modernization areas to prioritize as part of the plan. Which 3 areas should you recommend based on RAMP? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, Data, Compliance, and Governance. Option B, Infrastructure and Development. Option C, User Access and Productivity. Option D, Operational Technology, OT, and IoT. Option E, Modern Security Operations. The correct answers are A, C, and E according to the official Microsoft documentation on Zero Trust Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP. Prioritizing data, compliance, and governance A, user access and productivity C, and modern security O operations E ensures a secure foundation for IT environments by addressing critical areas such as trust verification, ransomware readiness, streamlined response, and unified visibility. Question 20. For a Microsoft cloud environment, you are designing a security architecture based on the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architectures, MCRA. You need to protect against the following external threats of an attack chain. An attacker attempts to exfiltrate data to external websites. An attacker attempts lateral movement across domain-joined computers. What should you include in the recommendation for each threat? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. An attacker attempts to exfiltrate data to external websites. Options: Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Microsoft Defender for Identity, Microsoft Defender for Office 365. Statement 2. An attacker attempts lateral movement across domain-joined computers. Options: Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Microsoft Defender for Identity, Microsoft Defender for Office 365. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Identity. Statement 1, Defender for Cloud Apps. Defender for Cloud Apps provides comprehensive protection against data exfiltration by monitoring and controlling access to sensitive data in cloud applications, ensuring that unauthorized attempts to move data out of the organization are detected and prevented. Statement 2, Defender for Identity. Defender F for Identity is designed to detect and prevent lateral movement across domain-joined computers by continuously analyzing network traffic and system activities to identify and respond to suspicious behaviors indicative of malicious intent. Question 21. For an Azure deployment, you are designing a security architecture based on the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. You need to recommend a best practice for implementing service accounts for Azure API management. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, application registrations in Azure ID. Option B, managed identities in Azure. Option C, Azure service principals with usernames and passwords. Option D, device registrations in Azure ID. Option E, Azure service principals with certificate credentials. The correct answer is B, managed identities in Azure. Managed identities in Azure provide a secure way to manage service accounts for Azure API management without the need to create and maintain credentials. This aligns with Microsoft's Recommendatio recommendation for securely managing application identities as per the CLU Cloud Security Benchmark. Question 22. You have an Azure ID tenant that syncs with an Active Directory domain services IDDS domain. Client computers run Windows and are hybrid joined to Azure ID. You are designing a strategy to protect endpoints against ransomware. The strategy follows Microsoft security best practices. You plan to remove all the domain accounts from the administrators' groups on the Windows computers. You need to recommend a solution that will provide users with administrative access to the Windows computers only when access is required. The solution must minimize the lateral movement of ransomware attacks if an administrator account on a computer is compromised. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, Local Administrator Password Solution, LAPS. Option B, Azure ID Identity Protection. Option C, Azure ID Privileged Identity Management, PIM. Option D, Privileged Access Workstations, PAWS. The correct answer is C. Azure ID Privileged Identity Management, PIM. Azure ID Privileged Identity Management, PIM, enables just-in-time access and helps minimize the risk of lateral movement by ensuring that administrative privileges are granted only when necessary, aligning with Microsoft's security best practices. Question 23. 29. Drag-drop for a Microsoft cloud environment. You need to recommend a security architecture that follows the zero trust principles of the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architectures, MCRA. Which security methodologies should you include in the recommendation? To answer, drag the appropriate methodologies to the correct principles. Each methodology may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Take a moment to review the table on screen. Now your options. Match each of these targets. Assume breach, verify explicitly, use least privilege access. From this pool, business continuity, data classification, just-in-time JIT access, segmenting access. Assume breach matches segmenting access. Verify explicitly matches data classification. Use least privilege access matches just-in-time JIT access. Segmenting access aligns with assume breach, as it helps contain the impact of a potential security incident. Data classification supports verify explicitly by enabling proper authenticity authentication and authorization based on data sensitivity levels. Just-in-time, JIT, access is directly associated with use least privilege access, as it provides time-limited permissions, adhering to the principle of granting only necessary access. Question 24. You have legacy operational technology, OT devices and IoT devices. You need to recommend best practices for applying zero trust principles to the OT and IoT devices based on the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architectures, MCRA. The solution must minimize the risk of disrupting business operations. Which 2 security methodologies should you include in the recommendation? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, active scanning. Option B, threat monitoring. Option C, software patching. Option D, passive traffic monitoring. The correct answers are B and D. Threat monitoring is crucial for identifying potential C security issues without disrupting operations. Passive traffic monitoring, E, ensures that network activity can be observed without the risk of system instability or crashes associated with active scanning and patching in legacy OT environments. Question 25. You have an on-premises network and a Microsoft 365 subscription. You are designing a zero-trust security strategy. Which 2 security controls should you include as part of the zero-trust solution? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct answer is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, always allow connections from the on-premises network. Option B, disable passwordless sign-in for sensitive accounts. Option C, block sign-in attempts from unknown locations. Option D, block sign-in attempts from non-compliant devices. The correct answers are C and D in a zero-trust architecture. Blocking sign-in attempts from unknown locations and non-compliant devices aligns with the principle of least privilege by ensuring access is granted based on verified user identity and device compliance rather than trust in network location alone. Question 26. You are designing a ransomware response plan that follows Microsoft security best practices. You need to recommend a solution to minimize the risk of a ransomware attack encrypting local user files. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, Windows Defender Device Guard. Option B, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Option C, Azure Files. Option D, BitLocker Drive Encryption, BitLocker. Option E, Protected Folders. The correct answer is E, Protected Folders. Protected folders, also known as controlled folder access, is designed to prevent unauthorized access and encryption of critical user files by ransomware. This feature specifically protects designated folders from being modified or encrypted by untrusted applications. Question 27. You have an Azure ID tenant that syncs with an Active Directory Domain Services IDDS domain. You are designing an Azure DevOps solution to deploy applications to an Azure subscription by using continuous integration and continuous deployment CI/CD pipelines. You need to recommend which types of identities to use for the deployment credentials of the service connection. The solution must follow DevSecOps best practices from the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. What should you recommend? Option A, a managed identity in Azure. Option B, an Azure ID user account that has role assignments in Azure ID Privileged Identity Management, PIM. Option C, a Group Managed Service account, GMSA. Option D, an Azure ID user account that has a password stored in Azure Key Vault. The correct answer is A, a managed identity in Azure. Managed identities in Azure provide a secure way to authenticate services without needing to manage credentials explicitly. They adhere to DevSecOps best practices by eliminating the need for passwords and simplifying access management. Question 28. You have an Azure Kubernetes Service, IKS, cluster that hosts Linux nodes. You need to recommend a solution to ensure that deployed worker nodes have the latest kernel updates. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you recommend? Option A, the nodes must restart after the updates are applied. Option B, the updates must first be applied to the image used to provision the nodes. Option C, the IKS cluster version must be upgraded. The correct answer is B, the updates must first be applied to the image used to provision the nodes. Updating the image used to provision nodes ensures that deployed worker nodes have the latest kernel updates with minimal administrative effort. Microsoft regularly updates node images for IKS, which include necessary security patches and OS kernel updates. Question 29. You have the following on-premises servers that run Windows Server. 2 domain controllers in an Active Directory Domain Services, IDDS, Domain 2 application servers named Server 1 and Server 2 that run ISP.NET Web Apps, a VPN server named Served that authenticates by using Radius, and IDDS end users use a VPN to access the web apps over the Internet. You need to redesign a user access solution to increase the security of the connections to the web apps. The solution must minimize the attack surface and follow the zero trust principles of the Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architectures, MCRA. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, publish the web apps by using Azure ID Application Proxy. Option B, configure the VPN to use Azure ID authentication. Option C, configure connectors and rules in Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. Option D, configure web protection in Microsoft Defender for endpoint. The correct answer is A. Publish the web apps by using Azure ID Application Proxy. Publishing the web apps using Azure ID Application Proxy aligns with Zero Trust principles by enabling secure access to on-premises applications without exposing them directly to the Internet, thereby minimizing the attack surface. Question 30. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft Purview, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive for Business. You need to recommend a ransomware protection solution that meets the following requirements: mitigates attacks that make copies of files, encrypt the copies, and then delete the original files, mitigates attacks that encrypt files in place, minimizes administrative effort. What should you include in the recommendation? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. To mitigate attacks that make copies of files, encrypt the copies, and then delete the original files. Use. Options: data loss prevention DLP policies, the recycle bin, versioning. Statement 2. To mitigate attacks that encrypt files in place. Use. Options: data loss prevention DLP policies, the recycle bin, versioning. For Statement 1, the correct answer is the recycle bin. For Statement 2, the correct answer is versioning. Statement 1, recycle bin. Yes, the recycle bin feature in SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business allows administrators to restore deleted files, which can help mitigate ransomware attacks that delete original files after encrypting copies. Statement 2, versioning. Yes. Versioning keeps a history of file changes, enabling the restoration of unencrypted versions of files if they are encrypted by ransomware, thus mitigating both in-place encryption and copy-based attacks. Question 31. You are designing a security operations strategy based on the Zero Trust framework. You need to minimize the operational load on Tier 1 Microsoft Security Operations Center, SOC, analysts. What should you do? Option A. Enable built-in compliance policies in Azure Policy. Option B. Enable self-healing in Microsoft 365 Defender. Option C. Automate data classification. Option D. Create hunting queries in Microsoft 365 Defender. The correct answer is B. Enable self-healing in Microsoft 365 Defender. Enabling self-healing in Microsoft 365 Defender automates the detection and remediation of security threats, reducing the need for manual intervention by Tier 1 SOC analysts. This automation directly minimizes their operational load as part of a Zero Trust framework. Question 32. You are designing a security operations strategy based on the Zero Trust framework. You need to increase the operational efficiency of the Microsoft Security Operations Center, SOC. Based on the Zero Trust framework, which 3 deployment objectives should you prioritize in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate objectives from the list of objectives to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. Take a moment to review the table on screen. Now, your options. The available items are: establish visibility, enable automation, enable additional protection and detection controls. The correct order is: Step 1, establish visibility. Step 2, enable automation. Step 3, enable additional protection and detection controls. According to the Zero Trust framework, establishing visibility is crucial for understanding current security posture. Enabling automation follows to enhance operational efficiency in the Microsoft SOC. Lastly, Enabling additional protection and detection controls ensures comprehensive security measures are in place. Question 33. You have an Azure subscription that contains multiple apps. The apps are managed by using continuous integration and continuous deployment, CCD, pipelines in Azure DevOps. You need to recommend DevSecOps controls for the commit the code and the build and test CI/CD process stages based on the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. Which testing method should you recommend for each stage? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Commit the code. Options: dynamic application security testing, DAST, penetration testing, smoke testing, static application security testing, SAST. Statement 2. Build and test. Options: dynamic application security testing, DAST, penetration testing, smoke testing, static application security testing, SAST. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Static Application Security Testing, SAST. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Dynamic Application Security Testing, DAST. Statement 1, yes, Static Application Security Testing, SAST, is appropriate for the commit the code stage because it can analyze source code before deployment, identifying security vulnerabilities early in the development process. This aligns with DevSecOps principles by integrating security checks directly into the CI/CD pipeline at an early stage to catch issues as soon as possible. Statement 2, no, Dynamic Application Security Testing, DAST, is not typically recommended for the build and test stage of a CI/CD pipeline because DAST requires running the application, which usually happens in later stages such as deployment or runtime testing. Instead, at the build and test stage, it's more common to use tools like unit tests, integration tests, and SAST to ensure that code quality and security are maintained before reaching live environments. Question 34. You have a Microsoft Entra tenant that contains 10 Windows 11 devices and 2 groups named Group 1 and Group 2. The Windows 11 devices are joined to the Microsoft Entra tenant and are managed by using Microsoft Intune. You are designing a privileged access strategy based on the Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP. The strategy will include the following configurations. Each user in Group 1 will be assigned a Windows 11 device that will be configured as a privileged access device. The security administrator role will be mapped to the privileged access security level. The users in Group 1 will be assigned the security administrator role. The users in Group 2 will manage the privileged access devices. You need to configure the local administrators group for each privileged access device. The solution must follow the principle of least privilege. What should you include in the solution? Option A, only add Group 2 to the local administrators group. Option B, configure Windows Local Administrator Password Solution, Windows LAPS, in Legacy Microsoft LAPS emulation mode. Option C, add Group 2 to the local administrators group. Add the user that is assigned the security administrator role to the local administrators group of the users assigned privileged access device. The correct answer is A, only add Group 2 to the local administrators group. Only adding Group 2 to the local administrators group, and SU, ensures that only those responsible for managing the privileged access DAV devices have administrative rights, adhering to the principle of least privilege. This minimizes unnecessary administrative access while maintaining usability. Question 35. Case study. This is a case study. Case studies are not timed separately. You can use as much exam time as you would like to complete each case. However, there may be additional case studies and sections on this exam. You must manage your time to ensure that you are able to complete all questions included on this exam in the time provided. To answer the questions included in a case study, you will need to reference information that is provided in the case study. Case studies might contain exhibits and other resources that provide more information about the scenario that is described in the case study. Each question is independent of the other question in this case study. At the end of this case study, a review screen will appear. This screen allows you to review your answers and to make changes before you move to the next section of the exam. After you begin a new section, you cannot return to this section. To start the case study, to display the first question in this case study, click the Next button. Use the buttons in the left pane to explore the content of the case study before you answer the questions. Clicking these buttons displays information such as business requirements, existing environment, and problem statements. If the case study has an All Information tab, note that the information displayed is identical to the information displayed on the subsequent tabs. When you are ready to answer a question, click the Question button to return to the question. Overview Litware, Inc. is a financial services company that has main offices in New York and San Francisco. Litware has 30 branch offices and remote employees across the United States. The remote employees connect to the main offices by using a VPN. Litware has grown significantly during the last 2 years due to mergers and acquisitions. The acquisitions include several companies based in France. Existing environment, Litware has a Microsoft Entra tenant that syncs with an Active Directory domain services, IDDS forest named Litware.com, and is linked to 20 Azure subscriptions. Microsoft Entra Connect is used to implement pass-through authentication. Password hash synchronization is disabled, and password writeback is enabled. All Litware users have Microsoft 365 E5 licenses. The environment also includes several IDDS forests, Microsoft Entra tenants, and hundreds of Azure subscriptions that belong to the subsidiaries of Litware. Requirements. Plan changes Litware plans to implement the following changes. Create a management group hierarchy for each Microsoft Entra tenant. Design a landing zone strategy to refactor the existing Azure environment of Litware and deploy all future Azure workloads. Implement Microsoft Entra Application Proxy to provide secure access to internal applications that are currently accessed by using the VPN. Requirements. Business requirements. Litware identifies the following business requirements. Minimize any additional on-premises infrastructure. Minimize the operational costs associated with administrative overhead. Requirements. Hybrid requirements. Litware identifies the following hybrid cloud requirements. Enable the management of on-premises resources from Azure, including the following. Use Azure policy for enforcement and compliance evaluation. Provide change tracking and asset inventory. Implement patch management. Provide centralized, cross-tenant subscription management without the overhead of maintaining guest accounts. Requirements. Microsoft Sentinel requirements. Litware plans to leverage the Security Information and Event Management, SIEM, and Security Orchestration Automated Response, SOAR, capabilities of Microsoft Sentinel. The company wants to centralize Security Operations Center, SOC, by using Microsoft Sentinel. Requirements. Identity requirements. Litware identifies the following identity requirements. Detect brute force attacks that directly target IDDS user accounts. Implement leaked credential detection in the Microsoft Entra tenant of Litware. Prevent IDDS user accounts from being locked out by brute force attacks that target Microsoft Entra user accounts. Implement delegated management of users and groups in the Microsoft Entra tenant of Litware, including support for the management of group properties, membership, and licensing, the management of user properties, passwords, and licensing, the delegation of user management based on business units requirements. Regulatory compliance requirements. Litware identifies the following regulatory compliance requirements. Ensure data residency compliance when collecting logs, telemetry, and data owned by each United States and France-based subsidiary. Leverage built-in Azure policy definitions to evaluate regulatory compliance across the entire managed environment. Use the principle of least privilege. Requirements. Azure Landing Zone Requirements. Litware identifies the following landing zone requirements. Route all internet-bound traffic from landing zones through Azure Firewall in a dedicated Azure subscription. Provide a secure score scoped to the landing zone. Ensure that the Azure virtual machines in each landing zone communicate with Azure App Service web apps in the same zone over the Microsoft backbone network, rather than over public endpoints. Minimize the possibility of data exfiltration. Maximize network bandwidth. The landing zone architecture will include the dedicated subscription, which will serve as the hub for internet and hybrid connectivity. Each landing zone will have the following characteristics: be created in a dedicated subscription. Use a DNS namespace of Litware, com. Requirements. Application security requirements. Litware identifies the following application security requirements. Identify internal applications that will support single sign-on, SSO, by using Microsoft Entra Application Proxy. Monitor and control access to Microsoft SharePoint Online and exchange online data in real time. You need to recommend a multi-tenant and hybrid security solution that meets to the business requirements and the hybrid requirements. What should you recommend? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, to centralize subscription management. Options: Microsoft Entra B2B, Microsoft Entra External ID, Azure Lighthouse. Statement 2, to enable the management of on-premises resources. Options: Azure Arc, Azure Stack Edge, Azure Stack Hub. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft Entra External ID. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Azure Arc. Statement 1, Azure Lighthouse. True. Azure Lighthouse N enables centralized management and governance of multiple Azure Subscriptio subscriptions, which aligns with the requirement for centralized cross-tenant subscription management without the overhead of maintaining GU guest accounts. Statement 2, Azure Arc. True. Azure Arc allows on-premises resources to be managed from the cloud using Azure Policy, CHAN change tracking, asset inventory, and patch management capabilities, addressing the hybrid requirements of managing on-premises resources from Azure. Question 36. You have an Azure subscription. You plan to deploy enterprise-scale landing zones based on the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. The deployment will include a single platform landing zone for all shared services and 3 application landing zones that will each host a different Azure application. You need to recommend which resource to deploy to each landing zone. The solution must meet the Cloud Adoption Framework best practice recommendations for enterprise-scale landing zones. What should you recommend? Option A, an Azure Firewall. Option B, an Azure Virtual Network Gateway. Option C, an Azure Private DNS Zone. Option D, an Azure Key Vault. The correct answer is D, an Azure Key Vault. An Azure Key Vault is recommended for each landing zone to securely store and manage keys, secrets, and certificates. This aligns with the Cloud Adoption Framework's best practices for enterprise-scale architecture, emphasizing secure management of sensitive information. Question 37. You have 1,000 on-premises servers that run Windows Server 2022 and 500 on-premises servers that run Linux. You have an Azure subscription that contains the following resources: a log analytics workspace, a Microsoft Defender Cloud Security Posture Management, CSPM, plan you need to deploy update management for the servers. What should you configure? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, Azure Resource. Options, a Microsoft Sentinel workspace, an Azure Automation account, Microsoft Defender for Servers Plan 2. Statement 2, Agent on the servers. Options, the Azure Connected Machine Agent, the Azure Monitor Agent, the Log Analytics Agent. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Servers Plan 2. For Statement 2, the correct answer is the Azure Connected Machine Agent. Statement 1, yes. To deploy update management for the on-premises servers, an Azure Automation account is required as it provides the necessary infrastructure and capabilities to manage updates AC across Windows and Linux environments. Statement 2, no. The requirement does not explicitly mention Log Analytics Agent deployment directly for update management configuration, although a Log Analytics workspace is already present, which can be associated with automation account for reporting purposes. But deploying the agent itself isn't mandatory for enabling update management functionality. Question 38. You have an Active Directory Domain Services IDDS domain that contains a virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI. The VDI uses non-persistent images and cloned virtual machine templates. VDI devices are members of the domain. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Virtual Desktop environment. The environment contains host pools that use a custom golden image. All the Azure Virtual Desktop deployments are members of a single Microsoft Entra Domain Services domain. You need to recommend a solution to deploy Microsoft Defender for endpoint to the hosts. The solution must meet the following requirements. Ensure that the hosts are onboarded to Defender for endpoint during the first startup sequence. Ensure that the Microsoft Defender portal contains a single entry for each deployed VDI host. Minimize administrative effort. What should you recommend? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, for the VDI, options, add the Defender for Endpoint onboarding script to the virtual machine template. Deploy Defender for Endpoint by using a custom group policy object, GPO. Onboard the virtual machine template to Defender for Endpoint. Statement 2. For Azure Virtual Desktop, options, deploy Defender for Endpoint by using a custom group policy object, GPO. Add the Defender for Endpoint onboarding script to the golden image. Onboard the golden image to Defender for Endpoint. For Statement 1, the correct answer is add the Defender for Endpoint onboarding script to the virtual machine template. For Statement 2, the correct answer is deploy Defender for Endpoint by using a custom group policy object, GPO. Statement 1, yes. Adding the Defender for Endpoint on BOA onboarding script to the virtual machine template ensures that each new non-persistent VDI host is onboarded during its first startup sequence. This meets the requirement of minimizing administrative effort, since it automates the onboarding process for all future hosts created from this template. Statement 2. Yes. Incorporating the Defender for Endpoint onboarding script into the golden image guarantees that every Azure Virtual Desktop deployment using this image will automatically be onboarded to Defender for Endpoint at first startup. This approach also reduces administrative overhead and ensures each deployed VDI host appears as a single entry in the Microsoft Defender portal, aligning with the given requirements. Question 39. You have 10 Azure subscriptions that contain 100 role-based access control, or BAC, role assignments. You plan to consolidate the role assignments. You need to recommend a solution to identify which role assignments were not used during the last 90 days. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Option B, Microsoft Entra Access Reviews. Option C, Microsoft Entra Privileged Identity Management, PIM. Option D, Microsoft Entra Permissions Management. The correct answer is D, Microsoft Entra Permissions Management. Microsoft Entra Permissions Management is designed to help identify unused role assignments by providing analytics on access usage. It minimizes administrative effort by automating the detection of inactive role assignments over a specified period, such as 90 days. Question 40. You have a Microsoft Entra tenant that syncs with an Active Directory Domain Services (IDDS) domain. You have an on-premises data center that contains 100 servers. The servers run Windows Server and are backed up by using Microsoft Azure Backup Server, MABS. You are designing a recovery solution for ransomware attacks. The solution follows Microsoft security best practices. You need to ensure that a compromised local administrator account cannot be used to stop scheduled backups. What should you do? Option A, from Azure Backup, configure multi-user authorization by using ResourceGuard. Option B, from Microsoft Entra Privileged Identity Management, PIM, create a role assignment for the backup contributor role. Option C, from Microsoft Azure Backup Setup, register MABS with a Recovery Services Vault. Option D, from a Recovery Services Vault, generate a security PIN for critical operations. The correct answer is A, from Azure Backup. Configure multi-user authorization by using ResourceGuard. Configuring multi-user authorization using ResourceGuard ensures that critical backup operations cannot be altered or stopped by a compromised local administrator account alone, aligning WIT with Microsoft's security best practices for ransomware protection. Question 41. You have an Azure subscription that contains multiple Azure storage blobs and Azure Files shares. You need to recommend a security solution for authorizing access to the blobs and shares. The solution must meet the following requirements. Support access to the shares by using the SMB protocol. Limit access to the blobs to specific periods of time. Include authentication support when possible. What should you recommend for each resource? To answer, select the options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, blobs, options, account shared access signatures, SIS, Microsoft Entra Domain Services, service shared access signatures, SIS, user delegation shared access signatures, SIS. Statement 2, shares, options, account shared access signatures, SIS, Microsoft Entra Domain Services, service shared access signatures, SIS, user delegation shared access signatures, SIS. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Account Shared Access Signatures, SIS. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Service Shared Access Signatures, SIS. Statement 1, yes. User Delegation, SIS supports limited T-time access to Azure storage blobs, meeting the requirement for time-limited access. Statement 2, yes. Microsoft Entra Domain Services support SMB protocol and provide authentication services which are necessary for secure access to shares. Question 42. You need to design a solution to accelerate a Zero Trust security implementation. The solution must be based on the Zero Trust Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP. Which 3 initiatives should you include in the solution, and in which order should you implement the initiatives? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Itletives discover and protect low-T devices. Implement DevOps integration. Explicitly validate trust for all access requests. Classify and protect data. Apply provisions for ransomware recovery readiness. The available items are explicitly validate trust for all access requests. Apply provisions for ransomware recovery readiness. Classify and protect data. The correct order is: Step 1, explicitly validate trust for all access requests. Step 2, apply provisions for ransomware recovery readiness. Step 3, classify and protect data. According to the Zero Trust Rapid Modernization Plan, RAMP, explicitly validate trust for all access requests addresses found foundational aspects of zero trust. Following this, classify and protect D data ensures critical assets are safeguarded effectively. Lastly, apply P provisions for ransomware recovery readiness enhances resilience against P potential threats. Question 43. You have an Azure subscription. The subscription contains an Azure SQL database named DB1 that stores customer data. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that uses Microsoft SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and Teams. Users frequently create Microsoft Office documents that contain data from DB1. You need to recommend a Microsoft Purview solution that meets the following requirements. Identifies Office documents that contain customer addresses and phone numbers sourced from DB1. Generates an alert if a user downloads an above-average number of files that contain data from DB1. Minimizes the number of false positives. What should you include in the solution for each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Identify documents. Options: a custom sensitive information type, SIT based on exact data match EDM, document fingerprinting, a named entity sensitive information type, SIT, trainable classifiers. Statement 2. Generate alerts. Options: Microsoft Purview data policy, Microsoft Purview information barriers, IBs. Microsoft Purview information protection, Microsoft Purview insider risk management. For Statement 1, the correct answer is document fingerprinting. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Microsoft Purview insider risk management. Statement 1, yes. Microsoft Purview's data discovery and classification service can be used to identify Office documents that contain customer addresses and phone numbers sourced from DB1. It allows for the identification of sensitive data across various environments, including those where Office documents are stored. Statement 2, no. To generate alerts based on user activity such as downloading files containing data from DB1, Microsoft Purview's Data Loss Prevention (DLP) policies would be more appropriate than just using the data discovery and C classification service alone. DLP policies can monitor and alert on suspicious activities related to sensitive data. Statement 3, yes. The use of advanced analytics within Microsoft Purview's solutions helps minimize false positives by accurately identifying patterns that signify real threats versus benign activities through machine learning techniques and customizable rule sets. Question 44. You have an Azure DevOps organization that is used to manage the development and deployment of internal apps to multiple Azure subscriptions. You need to implement a DevSecOps strategy based on Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure principles. The solution must meet the following requirements. All pull requests must be enforced. All deployments to production must be approved. What should you include in the solution for each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. All pull requests must be enforced. Options, environments, protected branches, resource locks. Statement 2. All deployments to production must be approved. Options, environments, resource locks, triggers. For Statement 1, the correct answer is protected branches. For Statement 2, the correct answer is triggers. Statement 1, protected branches. According to Microsoft's documentation, protected branches in Azure repos ensure that all pull requests must be enforced before changes can be merged into a branch. This aligns with the requirement of enforcing all pull requests. Since Statement 2, environments. The environments feature within Azure DevOps pipelines allows you to specify approval gates for deployments to different stages, including production, thus ensuring all deployments to production are approved as required. Question 45. Your company uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Microsoft Sentinel. The company is designing an application that will have the architecture shown in the following exhibit. You are designing a logging and auditing solution for the proposed architecture. The solution must meet the following requirements. Integrate Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF, logs with Microsoft Sentinel. Use Defender for Cloud to review alerts from the virtual machines. What should you include in the solution? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, for WAF, options, the Azure Diagnostics Extension, Azure Network Watcher, data connectors, workflow automation. Statement 2, for the virtual machines, options, the Azure Diagnostics Extension, Azure Storage Analytics, data connectors, Defender for servers. Workflow automation. For Statement 1, the correct answer is data connectors. For Statement 2, the correct answer is the Azure Diagnostics Extension. Statement 1, yes. Integrating Azure Web Application Firewall WAF logs with Microsoft Sentinel is a valid requirement because Microsoft Sentinel supports the ingestion and analysis of WAF logs, allowing for comprehensive security monitoring. Statement 2, no. While Defender for Cloud can be used to monitor virtual machines, it does not directly integrate or review alerts from them in the context specified by the question. The question specifies using Defender for Cloud specifically for reviewing alerts, which is accurate only if referring to the monitoring capabilities of Defender for Cloud. But there's no indication that alerts are being routed through Defender for Cloud for this purpose. Question 46. You have a Microsoft Entra tenant named Contoso.com. You have 30 Azure subscriptions that are linked to Contoso.com. The tenant contains the management groups shown in the following table. You need to design a governance solution to manage access to all the Azure storage accounts across the subscriptions. The solution must meet the following requirements. Use custom role-based access control, RBAC, to provide granular access to control plane and data plane operations. Minimize administrative effort. At which scope should you assign the roles, and what is the minimum number of assignments per role? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Scope, options, /providers/Microsoft, management groups /Entra tenant GUI ID. Providers/Microsoft, management groups /MGMT1 and /providers/Microsoft, management groups /MGMT2. Statement 2. Minimum number of assignments. Options, 1 to 30. For Statement 1, the correct answer is providers/Microsoft, management/management groups/MGMT1, and /providers/Microsoft, management/management groups/MGMT2. For Statement 2, the correct answer is 30. Statement 1, management group level. Assigning roles at the management group level allows you to manage access across multiple subscriptions from a centralized location, which minimizes administrative effort as changes made at this level apply to all subscriptions within the specified management groups. Statement 2, one per role. By assigning roles at the management group level, only one assignment per role is needed because it applies to all subscriptions under that management group, thus meeting the requirement of minimizing administrative effort. Question 47. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Kubernetes Service, IKS, cluster named AKS1. AKS1 hosts a Windows node pool named Pool 1 and a Linux node pool named Pool 2. You are designing a pool update strategy for AKS1. You need to recommend how often to replace the operating system images deployed to the nodes. The solution must meet the following requirements. Minimize how long it takes to apply operating system updates once the updates are released. Minimize administrative effort. What should you recommend for each pool? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the two statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Pool 1. Options weekly, monthly, quarterly. Statement 2. Pool 2. Options weekly, monthly, quarterly. For Statement 1, the correct answer is monthly. For Statement 2, the correct answer is weekly. Statement 1, Pool 1, Windows, monthly. Updating the Opera operating system images on Windows nodes monthly helps in applying critical security updates and fixes while balancing administrative effort. Statement 2, Pool 2, Linux, weekly. Linux distributions often release more frequent updates compared to Windows. Hence, a weekly update cycle for Linux nodes minimizes the time taken to apply new patches and updates. Question 48. You have an Azure subscription that contains multiple apps. The apps are deployed by using continuous integration and continuous delivery, CI/CD, pipelines in Azure DevOps. You need to integrate static application security testing, SAST, and security smoke testing into the pipelines based on Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure principles. At which stage of the CI/CD process should each type of test be integrated? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the two statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, SAST. Options, build and test, commit the code, go to production. Statement 2, security smoke testing. Options, build and test, commit the code, go to production. For Statement 1, the correct answer is build and test. For Statement 2, the correct answer is build and test. Statement 1, SAST, pre-build. Static applications security testing, SAST, should be integrated in the pre-build stage of the CI/CD pipeline. This ensures that security vulnerabilities are identified early in the development process before any code is compiled or deployed. According to Microsoft's Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure principles, proactive identification and mitigation of security issues are key practices for secure software delivery. Statement 2, security smoke testing, post-deployment. Security smoke testing should be conducted after deployment to verify that critical security controls function as expected in the target environment. This is an important validation step, AC, according to Microsoft's best practices, ensuring that newly deployed applications do not introduce new vulnerabilities or fail to meet basic SEC security requirements. Question 49. You have an Azure subscription that contains Azure App Service apps. The apps have the following characteristics. The apps are deployed by using continuous integration and continuous deployment (CI/CD) pipelines in Azure DevOps. The apps are deployed to a test environment first and then to a production environment. The source code for the apps is stored in Azure repos. You plan to implement DevSecOps controls based on the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. You need to recommend testing controls to meet the following requirements. All the source code must be tested for security vulnerabilities in Azure repos before deploying the apps. Once the apps are deployed to the test environment, they must be tested for security vulnerabilities. Which testing method should you recommend for each stage? To answer, select the options in the answer area. Note, each correct answer is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, pre-deployment. Options: dynamic application security testing, DAST, penetration testing, security smoke testing. Static application security testing, SAST. Statement 2, post-deployment to the test environment. Options: dynamic application security testing, DAST, security acceptance testing, security smoke testing. Static application security testing, SAST. For Statement 1, the correct answer is static application security testing, SAST. For Statement 2, the correct answer is dynamic application security testing, DAST. Statement 1, yes. According to the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure, it is recommended that all source code be tested for security vulnerabilities before deployment. This can be achieved by integrating a static application security testing tool into the CI/CD pipeline within Azure DevOps, specifically targeting the code stored in Azure repos. Statement 2, yes. After deploying apps to a test and environment, dynamic analysis tools are necessary to identify runtime issues and security vulnerabilities. This aligns with the DevSecOps practice of continuous security validation post-deployment, but pre-production. Question 50. You have an Azure DevOps organization that is used to manage the development and deployment of internal apps to multiple Azure subscriptions. You are developing a DevSecOps strategy. You need to apply DevSecOps controls for the secure code stage and the secure operations stage. The solution must be based on Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure principles. What should you apply for each stage? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, secure code. Options: app access controls, a secure pipeline, supply chain dependency management, threat modeling. Statement 2, secure operations. Options: app access controls, a secure pipeline, supply chain dependency management, threat modeling. For Statement 1, the correct answer is app access controls. For Statement 2, the correct answer is a secure pipeline. Statement 1, yes. According to the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure, supply chain dependency management is a RECOM recommended control in the secure code stage. This involves ensuring that dependencies are up to date and do not have known vulnerabilities. Statement 2, yes. For the secure operations stage, app access controls align with the framework's recommendations. Implementing strong access controls ensures only authorized users can interact with applications, which is critical for maintaining operational security. Question 51. You have an Azure environment that contains multiple workloads deployed across multiple subscriptions. You need to recommend a solution to assess and improve the security posture of the workloads. The solution must meet the following requirements. Use the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure to evaluate compliance with cloud governance policies. Use the Azure well-architected framework to secure individual workloads. What should you include in the recommendation for each requirement? To answer, drag the appropriate recommendations to the correct requirements. Each recommendation may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Take a moment to review the table on screen. Now, your options. Match each of these targets. Use the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure to evaluate compliance with cloud governance policies. Use the Azure well-architected framework to secure individual workloads. From this pool, Azure Advisor. Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark, MCSB. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender Vulnerability. Microsoft Intune. Microsoft Sentinel. Use the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure to evaluate compliance with cloud governance policies. Matches Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Use the Azure well-architected framework to secure individual workloads. Matches Microsoft Defender Vulnerability. The Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark, MCSB, is designed to help organizations assess and improve their security posture in line with cloud governance policies, aligning well with the requirements of the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. Microsoft Defender for Cloud provides comprehensive security capabilities and guidance tailored for securing individual Azure workloads, which complements the recommendations of the Azure well-architected framework. Question 52. You are designing a ransomware mitigation strategy. You perform a ransomware risk assessment and identify business-critical assets. You need to recommend a solution to mitigate ransomware threats. The solution must follow Microsoft security best practices. Which 2 actions should you include in the recommendation? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct answer is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, enable firewall logging for auditing, without restricting inbound or outbound traffic. Option B, use extended patching cycles to reduce the risk of update-related service disruptions. Option C, implement immutable, offline backups that have restricted access and test restore procedures regularly. Option D, deploy privileged identity management, PIM, that uses just-in-time JIT, access, and approval workflows. The correct answers are C and D. Option C ensures that backups are protected from ransomware attacks and can be restored effectively. Option D reduces the at-attack surface by limiting privileged access to just-in-time scenarios. Question 53. You are designing new Azure applications based on security best practices from the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. Each application will be deployed to a dedicated and secure environment that will contain isolated instances of the following key Azure security resources: Azure Key Vault Virtual Networks and Azure Subscription, Azure Policy Assignments, Network Security Groups, NSGs, Role-Based Access Control, RBAC, assignments you need to recommend which type of environment and which module to use to deploy the applications. The solution must use infrastructure as code, ISC, to deploy each application environment. What should you recommend? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Environment type, options, landing zone, management group, private cloud, resource group. Statement 2. Module, options, Azure Resource Manager ARM or Bicep. Azure Resource Manager ARM or Terraform. Bicep or Terraform. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Landing Zone. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Azure Resource Manager ARM or Bicep. Statement 1, yes, Azure Resource Manager ARM templates are used for deploying infrastructure as code ISC, which aligns with the requirement to use ISC for each application environment. Since Statement 2, yes, Azure DevOps provides tools and services for managing the deployment pipeline, integrating well with ARM templates to automate the deployment of resources in a secure and repeatable manner. Question 54. You plan to implement an Azure environment based on Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for enterprise-scale landing zone architecture principles. The environment will host 3 apps that have the following characteristics. Each app will have a development environment, a test environment, and a production environment. Each environment will be managed by a separate team. Each app will store its secrets in Azure Key Vault. You need to recommend how many Azure subscriptions and key vaults to deploy to the application landing zones. What should you recommend? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Subscriptions. Options 1, 3, 9, 10. Statement 2. Key vaults. Options 1, 3, 9, 10. For Statement 1, the correct answer is 3. For Statement 2, the correct answer is 3. Statement 1, subscriptions. 3. According to the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for enterprise-scale landing zone architecture, it is recommended to use separate subscriptions for different applications or business units. Given that there are 3 apps and each will be managed by a separate team, deploying 1 subscription per app makes sense. Statement 2, key vaults per environment. 1. Each NV environment development, test, production within an application should have its own Azure Key Vault to ensure security isolation and compliance with best practices for managing secrets. This means each of the 3 NV environments will require a separate key vault. Statement 3, key vaults. 9. Since there are 3 apps and each app requires a key vault per environment, this results in a total of 9 key vaults. 3 apps, 3 environments equals 9 key vaults. Question 55. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that contains a group named Group 1. The subscription contains 1,000 Windows devices that are joined to a Microsoft Entra tenant and managed by using Microsoft Intune. All users sign in to the devices by using standard user accounts. You plan to deploy a new app named App 1 to the members of Group 1. The Group 1 members must have administrative rights to install new versions of App 1. You need to ensure that the Group 1 members can install new versions of App 1. The solution must follow the principles of Zero Trust. What should you implement? Option A, Microsoft Entra Privileged Identity Management PIM. Option B, Microsoft Intune Endpoint Privilege Management, EPM. Option C, Microsoft Local Administrator Password Solution, Microsoft LAPS. Option D, Microsoft Entra Entitlement Management. The correct answer is B, Microsoft Intune Endpoint Privilege Management, EPM. Microsoft Intune Endpoint Privilege Management, EPM, is the correct choice as it provides temporary elevation of privileges to standard users for specific tasks, such as installing new versions of App 1, aligning with Zero Trust principles by minimizing permanent administrative access. Question 56. You are evaluating an Azure environment for compliance. You need to design an Azure policy implementation that can be used to evaluate compliance without changing any resources. Which effect should you use in Azure policy? Option A, deny. Option B, modify. Option C, append. Option D, disabled. The correct answer is D, disabled. The disabled effect in Azure policy ensures that the policy will not enforce any changes, but can still report O on compliance. This aligns with the requirement to evaluate compliance without altering any resources. Question 57. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You are evaluating the Azure Security Benchmark V3 report as shown in the following exhibit. You need to verify whether Microsoft Defender for Servers is installed on all the virtual machines that run Windows. Which compliance control should you evaluate? Option A, asset management. Option B, posture and vulnerability management. Option C, data protection. Option D, endpoint security. Option E, incident response image content. Microsoft Defender for Cloud showing subscription. Subscription 1, download report manage compliance policies, open query audit reports. You can now fully customize the standards you track in TH. The correct answer is D, endpoint security. Endpoint security is the correct compliance control to evaluate because it specifically addresses the security of endpoints like virtual machines running Windows. This includes ensuring that Microsoft Defender for Servers is installed and functioning properly on all relevant VMs. Question 58. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription and an Azure subscription. You need to evaluate the existing environment to increase the overall security posture for the following components. Windows 11 devices managed by Microsoft Intune Azure Storage accounts Azure Virtual Machines. What should you use to evaluate the components? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 3 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, Windows 11 devices. Options: Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, Microsoft 365 Defender, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Sentinel. Statement 2, Azure Virtual Machines. Options: Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, Microsoft 365 Defender, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Sentinel. Statement 3, Azure Storage Accounts. Options: Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, Microsoft 365 Defender, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Sentinel. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft 365 Defender. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. For Statement 3, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Statement 1, yes. Microsoft 365 Defender, including Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, is suitable for evaluating the security posture of Windows 11 devices managed by Microsoft Intune. It provides comprehensive threat protection and response capabilities tailored to endpoints within a Microsoft 365 environment. Statement 2, yes. For Azure Storage Accounts, Microsoft Defender for Cloud offers security posture management features that help assess and improve the security configuration of these resources. Statement 3, yes. Similarly, for evaluating Azure Virtual Machines, Microsoft Defender for Cloud is appropriate as it provides ongoing monitoring and insights into security configurations, vulnerabilities, and threats affecting VMs. Question 59. Your company has an Azure subscription that has enhanced security enabled for Microsoft Defender for Cloud. The company signs a contract with the United States government. You need to review the current subscription for NIST 853 compliance. What should you do first? Option A from Azure Policy, assign a built-in initiative that has a scope of the subscription. Option B from Microsoft Sentinel, configure the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Data Connector. Option C from Defender for Cloud, review the Azure Security Baseline for audit report. Option D from Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, create an access policy for cloud applications. The correct answer is C from Defender for Cloud, review the Azure Security Baseline for audit report. To review the current Azure subscription FOA for NIST 853 compliance, you should first use Defender for Cloud to examine the Azure Security Baseline within an audit report. This approach D directly addresses the need to assess and review existing configurations AG against regulatory standards. Question 60. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You have an Amazon Web Services, AWS, implementation. You plan to extend the Azure security strategy to the AWS implementation. The solution will not use Azure Arc. Which three services can you use to provide security for the AWS resources? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, Microsoft Defender for containers. Option B, Microsoft Defender for servers. Option C, Azure Active Directory, Azure ID, conditional access. Option D, Azure Active Directory, Azure ID, Privileged Identity Management, PIM. Option E, Azure Policy. The correct answers are A, C, and D, Microsoft Defender for containers, A, and Microsoft Defender for servers, B, can be used to monitor and secure resources on Oz without Azure Arc. Azure ID Conditional Access, C, can enforce security policies across cloud environments, including Oz. Azure ID Privileged Identity Management, D, helps manage and control access to sensitive resources regardless of the cloud environment. Question 61. Your company has on-premises network in Seattle and an Azure subscription. The on-premises network contains a remote desktop server. The company contracts a third-party development firm from France to develop and deploy resources to the virtual machines hosted in the Azure subscription. Currently, the firm establishes an RDP connection to the remote desktop server. From the remote desktop connection, the firm can access the virtual machines hosted in Azure by using custom administrative tools installed on the remote desktop server. All the traffic to the remote desktop server is captured by a firewall, and the firewall only allows specific connections from France to the server. You need to recommend a modern security solution based on the Zero Trust model. The solution must minimize latency for developers. Which three actions should you recommend? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, configure network security groups, NSGs, to allow access from only specific logical groupings of IP address ranges. Option B, deploy a remote desktop server to an Azure region located in France. Option C, migrate from the remote desktop server to Azure Virtual Desktop. Option D, implement Azure Firewall to restrict host pool outbound access. Option E, configure Azure Active Directory, Azure ID, conditional access with multi-factor authentication, MFI, and named locations. The correct answers are C, D, and E, migrating to Azure Virtual Desktop. C, aligns with modern security practices and enhances manageability. Implementing Azure Firewall D to restrict outbound access from host pools adds a layer of security in line with the Zero Trust model. Configuring Azure ID conditional access with MFI and named locations, E, ensures secure authentication based on user identity and location, reducing risk. Question 62. Your company has a multi-cloud environment that contains a Microsoft 365 subscription, an Azure subscription, and Amazon Web Services, AWS, implementation. You need to recommend a security posture management solution for the following components: Azure IoT Edge devices, AWS EC2 instances. Which services should you include in the recommendation? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. For the IoT Edge devices, options: Azure Arc, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Defender for IoT. Statement 2. For the AWS EC2 instances, options: Azure Arc only, Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Azure Arc, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps only, Microsoft Defender for Cloud only, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Azure Arc, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint only. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for IoT. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Azure Arc. Statement 1, yes. Defender for IoT is the correct solution for securing Azure IoT Edge devices, as it provides comprehensive security management specifically designed for IoT and OT environments. Statement 2, yes. For AWS EC2 instances, Microsoft Defender for Cloud can be used by leveraging Azure Arc to extend monitoring capabilities into multi-cloud environments, including AWS. Question 63. Your company has a hybrid cloud infrastructure. The company plans to hire several temporary employees within a brief period. The temporary employees will need to access applications and data on the company's on-premises network. The company's security policy prevents the use of personal devices for accessing company data and applications. You need to recommend a solution to provide the temporary employee with access to company resources. The solution must be able to scale on demand. What should you include in the recommendation? Option A, deploy Azure Virtual Desktop, Azure Active Directory, Azure ID conditional access, and Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Option B, redesign the VPN infrastructure by adopting a split tunnel configuration. Option C, deploy Microsoft Endpoint Manager and Azure Active Directory, Azure ID conditional access. Option D, migrate the on-premises applications to cloud-based applications. The correct answer is A, deploy Azure Virtual Desktop, Azure Active Directory, Azure ID conditional access, and Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Azure Virtual Desktop provides a scalable solution for remote access to applications and data. Combined with Azure ID conditional access and Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, it ensures secure access that adheres to the company's security policy against personal device usage. Question 64. Your company is preparing for cloud adoption. You are designing security for Azure landing zones. Which 2 preventative controls can you implement to increase the secure score? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF. Option B, Azure Active Directory, Azure ID, Privileged Identity Management, PIM. Option C, Microsoft Sentinel. Option D, Azure Firewall. Option E, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Alerts. The correct answers are A and D. Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF, and Azure Firewall are both preventative controls that can be implemented to restrict unauthorized access and enhance network security, thereby increasing the C-Secure score in Azure. Question 65. You are designing security for an Azure landing zone. Your company identifies the following compliance and privacy requirements. Encrypt cardholder data by using encryption keys managed by the company. Encrypt insurance claim files by using encryption keys hosted on premises. Which two configurations meet the compliance and privacy requirements? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, store the cardholder data in an Azure SQL database that is encrypted by using Microsoft managed keys. Option B, store the insurance claim data in Azure Blob Storage, encrypted by using customer-provided keys. Option C, store the cardholder data in an Azure SQL database that is encrypted by using keys stored in Azure Key Vault managed HSM. Option D, store the insurance claim data in Azure Files, encrypted by using Azure Key Vault managed HSM. The correct answers are B and C option. B meets the requirement for encrypting insurance C-claim files, with keys hosted on premises through customer-provided keys. Option C fulfills the need to encrypt cardholder data using company-managed encryption keys by utilizing Azure Key Vault managed HSM. Question 66. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You need to enforce ISO 27001:2013 standards for the subscription. The solution must ensure that non-compliant resources are remediated automatically. What should you use? Option A, Azure Policy. Option B, Azure Blueprints. Option C, the Regulatory Compliance Dashboard in Defender for Cloud. Option D, Azure Role-Based Access Control. Azure are back. The correct answer is A, Azure Policy. Azure Policy enforces organizational standards and assesses compliance at scale. It provides continuous enforcement and automatic remediation capabilities necessary to meet ISO 27001:2013 standards. Question 67. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. You need to recommend a security solution to monitor the following activities. User accounts that were potentially compromised. Users performing bulk file downloads from Microsoft SharePoint Online. What should you include in the recommendation for each activity? To answer, drag the appropriate components to the correct activities. Each component may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Select and place. Match each of these targets. User accounts that were potentially compromised, users performing bulk file downloads from SharePoint Online. From this pool, a data loss prevention DLP policy. Azure Active Directory, Azure ID Conditional Access. Azure Active Directory, Azure ID Identity Protection. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. User accounts that were potentially compromised matches Azure Active Directory, Azure ID Identity Protection. Users performing bulk file downloads from SharePoint Online matches Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Question 68. Your company finalizes the adoption of Azure and is implementing Microsoft Defender for Cloud. You receive the following recommendations in Defender for Cloud access to storage accounts with firewall and virtual network configurations should be restricted. Storage accounts should restrict network access using virtual network rules. Storage account should use a private link connection. Storage account public access should be disallowed. You need to recommend a service to mitigate identified risks that relate to the recommendations. What should you recommend? Option A, Azure Policy. Option B, Azure Network Watcher. Option C, Azure Storage Analytics. Option D, Microsoft Sentinel. The correct answer is A, Azure Policy. Azure Policy enforces organizational standards and assesses compliance at scale, which aligns with the recommendations to restrict access, use virtual network rules, employ private link connections, and disallow public access for storage accounts. Accounts. Question 69. You receive a security alert in Microsoft Defender for Cloud as shown in the exhibit. Click the Exhibit tab. After remediating the threat, which policy definition should you assign to prevent the threat from reoccurring? Option A, storage account public access should be disallowed. Option B, Azure Key Vault managed, HSM should have purge protection enabled. Option C, storage accounts should prevent shared key access. Option D, storage account keys should not be expired image content. Security Alert 2,517, quadrillion 569, trillion 153,524,258,480 F132, EBB 7C9-4942 BF, 62D0DD52, CFE 74, Microburst Exploitation Toolkit, used to extract keys to your storage accounts. Preview. Sample alert high severity. Active status. The correct answer is C, storage accounts should prevent shared key access. The Microburst Exploitation Toolkit aims to extract storage account keys. To prevent this, disabling shared key access in storage accounts, as per option C, is the most appropriate measure, as it ensures that only Azure Active Directory Azure ID credentials are used for authorization. Question 70. You have 50 Azure subscriptions. You need to monitor the resource in the subscriptions for compliance with the ISO 27001-2013 standards. The solution must minimize the effort required to modify the list of monitored policy definitions for the subscriptions. What are two ways to achieve the goal? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. This is a select all that apply question. Option A, assign an initiative to a management group. Option B, assign a policy to each subscription. Option C, assign a policy to a management group. Option D, assign an initiative to each subscription. Option E, assign a blueprint to each subscription. Option F, assign a blueprint to a management group. The correct answers are A and F, assigning an initiative to a management group. Option A, or assigning a blueprint to a management group. Option F, allows for centralized management of compliance policies across multiple subscriptions with minimal effort required to modify the list of monitored policy definitions. Question 71. You open Microsoft Defender for Cloud as shown in the following exhibit. Use the drop-down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the two statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. To increase the score for the restrict unauthorized network access control, implement answer choice. Options: Azure Active Directory, Azure ID conditional access policies, Azure Web Application Firewall WAF, Network Security Groups NSGs. Statement 2. To increase the score for the Enable Endpoint Protection Control, implement answer choice. Options: Microsoft Defender for Resource Manager. Microsoft Defender for servers, private endpoints. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Network Security Groups, NSGs. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for servers. Statement 1, NSG. Network Security Groups, NSGs, are used to control inbound and outbound traffic at the network level. They can restrict unauthorized network access, which aligns with security controls in Microsoft Defender for cloud. Statement 2, Microsoft Defender F for servers. Microsoft Defender for servers provides comprehensive protection against cyber threats by monitoring and detecting suspicious activities on server workloads, fitting the context of enhancing cloud security as shown in the exhibit. Question 72. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You are evaluating the Azure Security Benchmark V3 report. In the Secure Management Ports controls, you discover that you have 0 out of a potential 8 points. You need to recommend configurations to increase the score of the Secure Management Ports controls. Solution: you recommend enabling the VM access extension on all virtual machines. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. The correct answer is B, no. Enabling the VM access extension on all virtual machines does not address the Secure Management Ports controls. To increase the score in this area, one must implement solutions like just-in-time, JIT, VM access, or adaptive network hardening as recommended by Azure Security Benchmark V3 to Secure Management Ports. Question 73. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You are evaluating the Azure Security Benchmark V3 report. In the Secure Management Ports controls, you discover that you have 0 out of a potential 8 points. You need to recommend configurations to increase the score of the Secure Management Ports controls. Solution: you recommend enabling adaptive network hardening. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. The correct answer is B, no. Adaptive network hardening is associated with restrict unauthorized network access and does not directly contribute to the Secure Management Ports control, which requires protection through just-in-time network access or closing management ports. Question 74. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You are evaluating the Azure Security Benchmark V3 report. In the Secure Management Ports controls, you discover that you have 0 out of a potential 8 points. You need to recommend configurations to increase the score of the Secure Management Ports controls. Solution: you recommend enabling just-in-time JIT, VM access on all virtual machines. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. The correct answer is B, no. Enabling just-in-time JIT VM access is one of the config configurations that can help increase the score in the secure management PO ports controls. However, JIT alone does not cover all potential points for this control, as adaptive network hardening also contributes to a higher SCO score. Therefore, recommending only JIT does not fully meet the goal. Question 75. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Your on-premises network contains an e-commerce web app that was developed in Angular and Node.js. The web app uses a MongoDB database. You plan to migrate the web app to Azure. The solution architecture team proposes the following architecture as an Azure landing zone. You need to provide recommendations to secure the connection between the web app and the database. The solution must follow the zero trust model. Solution: you recommend creating private endpoints for the web app and the database layer. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Diagram. Data flows sequentially from client browser to Azure App Service Web App, then to Azure Cosmos DB, and finally to Azure Cognitive Search. The correct answer is A, yes. Creating private endpoints for the web app and database layer ensures internal traffic remains within the Microsoft NI network, enhancing security. This aligns with zero trust principles by minimizing exposure to external threats. Question 76. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Your on-premises network contains an e-commerce web app that was developed in Angular and Node.js. The web app uses a MongoDB database. You plan to migrate the web app to Azure. The solution architecture team proposes the following architecture as an Azure landing zone. You need to provide recommendations to secure the connection between the web app and the database. The solution must follow the zero trust model. Solution: you recommend implementing Azure Key Vault to store credentials. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Diagram. Data flows sequentially from the client browser to Azure App Service Web App, then to Azure Cosmos DB, and finally to Azure Cognitive Search. The correct answer is B, no. Diagram. Data flows sequentially from the client browser to Azure App Service Web App, then to Azure Cosmos DB, and finally to Azure Cognitive Search. Implementing Azure Key Vault to store credentials does not directly secure the connection between the web app and database as required by the zero trust model. The focus should be on securing network C communications, which can be achieved through methods like using private link rather than solely relying on credential management. Question 77. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Your on-premises network contains an e-commerce web app that was developed in Angular and Node.js. The web app uses a MongoDB database. You plan to migrate the web app to Azure. The solution architecture team proposes the following architecture as an Azure landing zone. You need to provide recommendations to secure the connection between the web app and the database. The solution must follow the Zero Trust model. Solution: you recommend implementing Azure Application Gateway with Azure Web Application Firewall WAF. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no diagram. Data flows sequentially from the client browser to Azure App Service Web App, then to Azure Cosmos DB, and finally to Azure Cognitive Search. The correct answer is B, no diagram. Data flows sequentially from the client browser to Azure App Service Web App, then to Azure Cosmos DB, and finally to Azure Cognitive Search. The recommended solution of implementing as Azure Application Gateway with Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF, does not secure the connection between the web app and the database following the Zero Trust model. To adhere to Zero Trust principles, private link SHA should be used for securing data exchanges within the Microsoft network. Question 78. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription and an Azure subscription. Microsoft 365 Defender and Microsoft Defender for Cloud are enabled. The Azure subscription contains 50 virtual machines. Each virtual machine runs different applications on Windows Server 2019. You need to recommend a solution to ensure that only authorized applications can run on the virtual machines. If an unauthorized application attempts to run or be installed, the application must be blocked automatically until an administrator authorizes the application. Which security control should you recommend? Option A, Adaptive Application Controls in Defender for Cloud. Option B, App Protection Policies in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Option C, App Discovery Anomaly Detection Policies in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Option D, Azure Security Benchmark Compliance Controls in Defender for Cloud. The correct answer is A, Adaptive Application Controls in Defender for Cloud. Adaptive Application Controls in Defender F for Cloud automatically create a list of approved applications based on his historical data and block any unauthorized applications from running or being installed until an administrator authorizes them. Question 79. Note: this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Your on-premises network contains an e-commerce web app that was developed in Angular and Node.js. The web app uses a MongoDB database. You plan to migrate the web app to Azure. The solution architecture team proposes the following architecture as an Azure landing zone. You need to provide recommendations to secure the connection between the web app and the database. The solution must follow the Zero Trust model. Solution: you recommend implementing Azure Front Door with Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no diagram. Data flows sequentially from client browser to Azure App Service Web App, then to Azure Cosmos DB, and finally to Azure Cognitive Search. The correct answer is B, no diagram. Data flows sequentially from client browser to Azure App Service Web App, then to Azure Cosmos DB, and finally to Azure Cognitive Search. Implementing Azure Front Door with WAF primarily secures the web app from external threats, but does not directly secure the connectee connection between the web app and the database. For Zero Trust compliance, securing internal data communication is essential. Question 80. You have a customer that has a Microsoft 365 subscription and an Azure subscription. The customer has devices that run either Windows, iOS, Android, or macOS. The Windows devices are deployed on-premises and in Azure. You need to design a security solution to assess whether all the devices meet the customer's compliance rules. What should you include in the solution? Option A, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Option B, Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Option C, Microsoft Information Protection. Option D, Microsoft Sentinel. The correct answer is B, Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Microsoft Endpoint Manager is the correct choice because it provides the capability to create and enforce compliance policies across various device types, including Windows, iOS, Android, and macOS. It integrates with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to enhance security assessments and ensure devices meet specified compliance rules. Question 81. Note, this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You are evaluating the Azure Security Benchmark V3 report. In the Secure Management Ports Controls, you discover that you have 0 out of a potential 8 points. You need to recommend configurations to increase the score of the Secure Management Ports Controls. Solution: you recommend onboarding all virtual machines to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. The correct answer is B, no. Onboarding all virtual machines to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint does not address the Secure Management Ports Controls. To increase the score in this area, configurations related directly to securing management ports, such as configuring firewalls or network security groups, are required. Question 82. Your company has an Azure subscription that has enhanced security enabled for Microsoft Defender for Cloud. The company signs a contract with the United States government. You need to review the current subscription for NIST 853 compliance. What should you do first? Option A, from Defender for Cloud, review the secure score recommendations. Option B, from Microsoft Sentinel, configure the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Data Connector. Option C, from Defender for Cloud, review the Azure Security Baseline for Audit Report. Option D, from Defender for Cloud, add a regulatory compliance standard. The correct answer is D, from Defender for Cloud, add a regulatory compliance standard. To assess NIST 853 compliance in an Azure subscription with enhanced security enabled for Microsoft Defender for Cloud, the first step is to add a regulatory compliance standard. This action ensures that specific controls and assessments related to NIST 805-853 are integrated into the environment for review. Question 83. Your company has devices that run either Windows 10, Windows 11, or Windows Server. You are in the process of improving the security posture of the devices. You plan to use security baselines from the Microsoft Security Compliance Toolkit. What should you recommend using to compare the baselines to the current device configurations? Option A, Microsoft Intune. Option B, Local Group Policy Object, LGPO. Option C, Windows Autopilot. Option D, Policy Analyzer. The correct answer is D, Policy Analyzer. Policy Analyzer is part of the Microsoft Security Compliance Toolkit and is designed to compare security baselines against current device configurations. This tool aids in identifying discrepancies between recommended security settings and actual device policies. Question 84. You have an Azure subscription that is used as an Azure landing zone for an application. You need to evaluate the security posture of all the workloads in the landing zone. What should you do first? Option A, configure continuous integration, continuous deployment, CI/CD, vulnerability scanning. Option B, obtain Azure ID Premium Plan 2 licenses. Option C, add Microsoft Sentinel data connectors. Option D, enable the Defender plan for all resource types in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. The correct answer is D, enable the Defender plan for all resource types in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Enabling the Defender plan for all resource types in Microsoft Defender for Cloud provides foundational security posture management capabilities that identify necessary steps to secure your environment, aligning with the requirement to evaluate the security posture of all workloads. Question 85. Your company has an Azure subscription that has enhanced security enabled for Microsoft Defender for Cloud. The company signs a contract with the United States government. You need to review the current subscription for NIST 853 compliance. What should you do first? Option A, from Azure Policy, assign a built-in initiative that has a scope of the subscription. Option B, from Azure Policy, assign a built-in policy definition that has a scope of the subscription. Option C, from Defender for Cloud, review the Azure Security Baseline for Audit Report. Option D, from Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, create an access policy for cloud applications. The correct answer is A, from Azure Policy. Assign a built-in initiative that has a scope of the subscription. Azure Policy allows for the enforcement of governance rules at scale. Assigning a built-in initiative scope to the subscription provides a comprehensive set of policies aligned with NIST 853, enabling an effective review and compliance check against these standards. Question 86. Your company has an Azure subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud. The company signs a contract with the United States government. You need to review the current subscription for NIST 853 compliance. What should you do first? Option A, from Defender for Cloud, review the Azure Security Baseline for Audit Report. Option B, from Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, create an access policy for cloud applications. Option C, from Defender for Cloud, enable Defender for Cloud plans. Option D, from Azure Policy, assign a built-in initiative that has a scope of the subscription. The correct answer is D, from Azure Policy. Assign a built-in initiative that has a scope of the subscription. Azure Policy provides built-in initiatives for NIST 853 compliance that can be assigned at the subscription level T to assess and enforce compliance. This approach aligns with initial steps N needed to review the current Azure environment against NIST standards. Question 87. You have a Microsoft Entra tenant that is linked to a Microsoft 365 subscription and an Azure subscription. The tenant contains service principals that are used to access applications in the Azure subscription. You need to recommend a solution to detect risky sign-ins and other risky activities performed by the service principals in the tenant. The solution must minimize costs. What should you include in the recommendation? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Service. Options: Microsoft Defender for cloud apps, Microsoft Defender for identity, Microsoft Entra ID protection. Statement 2. License type. Options: Microsoft Entra ID P1, Microsoft Entra ID P2, Microsoft Entra Workload ID Premium. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft Entra ID Protection. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Microsoft Entra ID P2. Statement 1, yes. Monitor risky sign-ins using Microsoft Entra ID Protection is the correct choice because it provides CAP capabilities to detect risky sign-in activities directly from within the T tenant. This service is designed specifically for identifying potential security risks related to user identities, including those used by service principals. Statement 2, no. Enable Azure Active Directory, Azure ID Privileged Identity Management, PIM, is not necessary for detecting risky sign-ins or general risky activity performed by service principals, as PIM-F focuses more on managing and auditing the usage of privileged roles rather than identifying risky activities directly. Statement 3, no. Use Azure Sentinel for advanced threat detection and response can be an overkill in this scenario, especially since minimizing costs is a requirement. While Azure Sentinel offers comprehensive security analytics and threat hunting capabilities, it requires additional setup and potentially higher operational costs compared to using Microsoft Entra ID Protection. Question 88. Your network contains an Active Directory Domain Services, IDDS, domain named Domain1. You have a Microsoft Entra tenant. Domain1 syncs with the tenant by using Microsoft Entra Connect. You need to evaluate Microsoft Entra Smart Lockout by testing the following account lockout considerations: the number of failed sign-in attempts that trigger a lockout, the duration of the lockout. What should you use to test each consideration? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. The number of failed sign-in attempts that trigger a lockout. Options: IDDS only, Microsoft Entra ID only, IDDS and Microsoft Entra ID. Statement 2. The duration of the lockout. Options: IDDS only, Microsoft Entra ID only, IDDS and Microsoft Entra ID. For Statement 1, the correct answer is IDDS and Microsoft Entra ID. For Statement 2, the correct answer is IDDS and Microsoft Entra ID. Statement 1, yes. According to official Microsoft documentation, Microsoft Entra Smart Lockout is managed through the Microsoft Entra portal. The number of failed sign-in attempts that trigger a lockout and the duration of the lockout are configured and monitored in the Entra ID portal. Question 89. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that contains 1,000 Microsoft Exchange Online mailboxes. Incoming email from the internet is scanned for security threats by using a third-party cloud service. You are evaluating whether to replace the third-party service with Microsoft Defender for Office 365. What should you modify to ensure that all the incoming email is scanned by Defender for Office 365 only? Option A, the accepted domains in Exchange Online. Option B, the DNS records. Option C, the Exchange Online transport rule. Option D, the Exchange Online connectors. The correct answer is C, the Exchange Online transport rule. To ensure that all incoming email is scanned by Microsoft Defender for Office 365 only, modifying the Exchange Online transport rule is necessary. Transport rules In Exchange Online Control, how messages are handled, and can be configured to route emails through spec-specific security services like Defender for Office 365. Question 90. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant that contains two groups named Group 1 and Group 2. You use Microsoft Defender XDR to manage the tenants of your company's customers. You need to ensure that the users in Group 1 can perform security tasks in the tenant of each customer. The solution must meet the following requirements. The Group 1 users must only be assigned the security operator role for the customer tenants. The users in Group 2 must be able to assign the security operator's role to the Group 1 users for the customer tenants. The use of Quest accounts must be minimized. Administrative effort must be minimized. What should you include in the solution? Option A, multi-user authorization, MUA. Option B, Azure Lighthouse. Option C, privileged identity management, PIM. Option D, Microsoft Entra B2B collaboration. The correct answer is B, Azure Lighthouse. Azure Lighthouse enables streamlined management of Microsoft 365 tenants for multiple customers. It allows delegating access and permissions to Group 1 users as security operators in customer tenants W, while enabling Group 2 to manage these assignments efficiently, minimizing administrative effort and the use of guest accounts. Question 91. You have an Azure subscription. Your company has a governance requirement that resources must be created in the West Europe or North Europe Azure regions. What should you recommend using to enforce the governance requirement? Option A, Azure Management Groups. Option B, Custom Azure Roles. Option C, Azure Policy Assignments. Option D, Regulatory Compliance Standards in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. The correct answer is C, Azure Policy Assignments. Azure Policy Assignments can enforce the governance requirement by restricting resource creation to specific regions, such as West Europe or North Europe, through policy definitions. Question 92. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that is protected by using Microsoft 365 Defender. You are designing a security operations strategy that will use Microsoft Sentinel to monitor events from Microsoft 365 and Microsoft 365 Defender. You need to recommend a solution to meet the following requirements. Integrate Microsoft Sentinel with a third-party security vendor to access information about known malware. Automatically generate incidents when the IP address of a command and control server is detected in the events. What should you configure in Microsoft Sentinel to meet each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the two statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Integrate Microsoft Sentinel with a third-party security vendor. Options: custom entity activities, a playbook, a threat detection rule, a threat intelligence connector. Statement 2. Automatically generate incidents. Options: custom entity activities, a playbook, a threat detection rule, a threat indicator, a threat intelligence connector. For Statement 1, the correct answer is a threat intelligence connector. For Statement 2, the correct answer is a threat detection rule. Statement 1, yes. The Threat Intelligence Connector in Microsoft Sentinel is designed to integrate with third-party security vendors, allowing access to information about known threats such as malware. This meets the requirement of integrating Microsoft Sentinel with a third-party vendor for accessing threat intelligence. Statement 2, yes. A threat detection rule can be configured to automatically generate incidents based on specific conditions detected within events. such as IDEN identifying command and control server IP addresses. This fulfills the need to automatically create incidents upon detecting suspicious IPs. Question 93. You have an Azure subscription that has Microsoft Defender for Cloud enabled. You need to enforce ISO 27001-2013 standards for new resources deployed to the subscription. The solution must ensure that non-compliant resources are automatically detected. What should you use? Option A, Azure Blueprints. Option B, the Regulatory Compliance Dashboard in Defender for Cloud. Option C, Azure Policy. Option D, Azure Role-Based Access Control. Azure are back. The correct answer is C, Azure Policy. Azure Policy enforces organizational standards at scale by using initiative definitions that can be configured for specific compliance standards, such as ISO 27001-2013. It automatically detects non-compliant resources, fulfilling the requirement of enforcing and detecting compliance issues. Question 94. You have a hybrid Azure ID tenant that has pass-through authentication enabled. You are designing an identity security strategy. You need to minimize the impact of brute force password attacks and leaked credentials of hybrid identities. What should you include in the design? To answer, drag the appropriate features to the correct requirements. Each feature may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Take a moment to review the table on screen. Now, your options. Match each of these targets for brute force password attacks for leaked credentials. From this pool, Azure ID Password Protection, Extranet Smart Lockout ESL, Password Hash Synchronization. For brute force password attacks, matches Azure ID Password Protection. For leaked credentials, matches Password Hash Synchronization. Extranet Smart Lockout ESL helps prevent brute force at attacks by distinguishing between legitimate users and attackers. Azure ID Password Protection mitigates the risk from leaked credentials by enforcing strong password policies and blocking commonly used or compromised passwords. Question 95. You are designing the security architecture for a cloud-only environment. You are reviewing the integration point between Microsoft 365 Defender and other Microsoft cloud services based on Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architectures, MCRA. You need to recommend which Microsoft cloud services integrate directly with Microsoft 365 Defender and meet the following requirements. Enforce data loss prevention, DLP policies that can be managed directly from the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. Detect and respond to security threats based on user and entity behavior analytics, UEBA, with unified alerting. What should you include in the recommendation for each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, DLP. Options, Azure Data Catalog, Azure Data Explorer, Microsoft Purview. Statement 2, UEBA. Options, Azure ID Identity Protection, Microsoft Defender for Identity, Microsoft Entra Verified ID. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft Purview. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Azure ID Identity Protection. Statement 1, yes, Microsoft Purview integrates with Microsoft 365 Defender and allows for the management of data loss prevention policies directly from the portal, meeting the requirement. Statement 2. No. While Microsoft Defender for Identity provides UEBA CAPAB capabilities, it is not specifically tailored to a cloud-only environment like Azure ID Identity Protection, which is better suited for detecting and responding to security threats based on UEBA in such environments. Question 96. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft Exchange Online. You need to recommend a solution to prevent malicious actors from impersonating the email addresses of internal senders. What should you include in the recommendation? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Service. Options: Azure ID Identity Protection, Microsoft Defender for DNS, Microsoft Defender for Office 365, Microsoft Purview. Statement 2. Policy type. Options: anti-phishing, anti-spam, data loss prevention DLP, insider risk management. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Microsoft Defender for Office 365. For Statement 2, the correct answer is anti-phishing. Statement 1, yes. Microsoft Defender for Office 365 INCL includes advanced anti-phishing features specifically designed to prevent impersonation, making it suitable for protecting against malicious actors who might try to spoof internal email addresses. Statement 2, no. While Exchange Online Protection, EOP, offers some basic anti-phishing protection, it lacks the comprehensive impersonation safeguards found in Microsoft Defender for Office 365. Question 97. Your network contains an on-premises Active Directory Domain Services IDDS domain. The domain contains a server that runs Windows Server and hosts shared folders. The domain syncs with Azure ID by using Azure ID Connect. Azure ID Connect has Group Writeback enabled. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that uses Microsoft SharePoint Online. You have multiple project teams. Each team has an IDDS group that syncs with Azure ID. Each group has permissions to a unique SharePoint Online site and a Windows Server shared folder for its project. Users routinely move between project teams. You need to recommend an Azure ID identity governance solution that meets the following requirements. Project managers must verify that their project group contains only the current members of their project team. The members of each project team must only have access to the resources of the project to which they are assigned. Users must be removed from a project group automatically if the project manager has not verified the group's membership for 30 days. Administrative effort must be minimized. What should you include in the recommendation? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1, Identity Governance Feature. Options: Access Reviews, Azure ID Privileged Identity Management PIM, Entitlement Management, Lifecycle Workflows. Statement 2, Project Team Configuration. Options: Enable Group Writeback for the existing synced groups. From Azure ID, create a new cloud-only security group for each project. Azure ID. Create a security group for each project and enable Group Writeback for each group. For Statement 1, the correct answer is Access Reviews. For Statement 2, the correct answer is Enable Group Writeback for the existing synced groups. Statement 1, yes. Access reviews allow project managers to verify group membership, ensuring only current members of their project team are included. This aligns with the requirement for verification and automatic removal after 30 days if not verified. Statement 2, no. Group WR Writeback is already enabled in this scenario as part of Azure ID Connect configuration. Therefore, enabling it again would be redundant. Question 98. You are designing a privileged access strategy for a company named Contoso, Limited, and its partner company named Fabricam, Inc. Contoso has an Azure ID tenant named Contoso, Com. Fabricam has an Azure ID tenant named Fabricam, Com. Users at Fabricam must access the resources in Contoso, Com. You need to provide the Fabricam users with access to the Contoso resources by using access packages. The solution must meet the following requirements. Ensure that the Fabricam users can use the Contoso access packages without explicitly creating guest accounts in Contoso, Com. Allow non-administrative users in Contoso, Com to create the access packages. What should you use for each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. For each of the 2 statements, pick the correct option. Statement 1. Ensure that the Fabricam users can use the access packages without explicitly creating guest accounts in Contoso, Com. Options: a connected organization, an external organization, an identity provider. Statement 2. Allow non-administrative users in Contoso, Com to create the access packages by creating options: administrative units, catalogs, programs. For Statement 1, the correct answer is a connected organization. For Statement 2, the correct answer is catalogs. Statement 1, yes. To ensure that Fabricam users can use the Contoso access packages without explicitly creating guest accounts in Contoso, Com, a connected organization should be used. Connected organizations allow users from external Azure ID tenants to request and manage their own access through entitlement management within the Partner T tenants catalog. Statement 2. Yes. To allow non-administrative users in Contoso, Com to create the access packages, catalogs can be delegated to non-administrative users with appropriate permissions. This enables them to manage and control access packages without needing full administrative P privileges. Question 99. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription and an Azure subscription. Microsoft 365 Defender and Microsoft Defender for Cloud are enabled. The Azure subscription contains 50 virtual machines. Each virtual machine runs different applications on Windows Server 2019. You need to recommend a solution to ensure that only authorized applications can run on the virtual machines. If an unauthorized application attempts to run or be installed, the application must be blocked automatically until an administrator authorizes the application. Which security control should you recommend? Option A, App Discovery Anomaly Detection Policies in Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Option B, Azure Security Benchmark Compliance Controls in Defender for Cloud. Option C, App Registrations in Azure ID. Option D, Application Control Policies in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. The correct answer is D, Application Control Policies in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Application Control Policies in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint allow administrators to specify which applications are allowed to run on devices, blocking unauthorized applications automatically until they are explicitly authorized. This meets the requirement of ensuring only authorized applications can run and be installed on the virtual match-in machines. Question 100. You have a Microsoft Entra tenant. The tenant contains 500 Windows devices that have the Global Secure Access Client deployed. You have a third-party software as a service, SaaS, app named App 1. You plan to implement Global Secure Access to manage access to App 1. You need to recommend a solution to manage connections to App 1. The solution must ensure that users authenticate by using their Microsoft Entra credentials before they can connect to App One. What should you include the recommendation? Option A, a global secure access app. Option B, a private access traffic forwarding profile. Option C, an internet access traffic forwarding profile. Option D, a quick access app. The correct answer is A, a global secure access app. A global secure access app integrates with Microsoft Entra for authentication, ensuring users authenticate using their Microsoft Entra credentials before accessing App One. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more cloud cert lessons, and I'll see you in the next one.